Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. Joining me on the podcast again is Trask Bergerson of Bergerson Tile and Stone in Astoria, Oregon. He is one partner of four, and they are now 3 generations deep into the partnership with a long history. We're going to be talking about making money on accident. And well, this company runs 3 generations deep, and there's systems and there's processes and there's 20 plus employees, there's office staff, there's installation crews, there's warehouse manager, there's somebody dictating the schedule and moving people around. Look, it is a machine over there. But is it as efficient as it could be? Is everything where it should be? Is there room for growth and more opportunity? Is there the ability to make more profit? And what really comes from when you take a step back and you actually start looking at your company from a 30,000 foot view instead of being stuck in it and running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And I know that's where a lot of us are, is we're very reactionary instead of proactive in, if this situation ever comes up, I know that we can do X, Y, and Z. So we're going to talk to Trask. I've been on a journey with him for like 2 years now, so I have some intimate details about the company, and I've seen a lot of changes with it. But it's been interesting to see that no matter how bad you want something, you can only move at the pace of understanding. And we just had a really good, this all came about because we started having this discussion yesterday. So we're going to dig into kind of what is Bergerson Tile and Stone and where they're going, and a lot of what's helped make some big changes around there lately, and how you truly can only move at the pace of understanding, and why he feels that, they've made money on accident for so many years. We'll have him introduce himself here in just a minute. I want to shout out to all of the sponsors real quick. Thank you to them. Without them, it doesn't happen. So Johns Manville, Tice, IQ, Power Tools, thank you for your support. Make sure you go in the show notes, click on their links, go visit them, see what they have going on, how they can help you grow your company. Floor Academy is here every Wednesday, releasing new episodes. We have been for over 4 years, so that you can understand the back end of your business. It's not just about knowing how to install, folks. It's about knowing how to turn a profit, how to stay organized, how to organize everything so that you can be efficient. And hopefully one day, if you would like, step away, take your hands off the wheel, and other people will do it probably better than you can, because we're not the greatest at everything, and nor should we be. So let them do what they're good at. We do what we're good at. Everyone works as a team. We move it forward, and we're here having those conversations to help you have the insights so that you can apply it to your company. You can go over to patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping to support the show. If you head over to flooracademypod.com, check out the shop. Go find out about our mastermind groups. We've got new groups opening up in October. We've got a whole new platform where it'll just be Saturdays opening in October. So we'll do just Saturday mornings and get a whole big gang of people together and do it, what I'm calling a masterclass mastermind. There's going to be more details over there, or just reach out to me directly, flooracademypodcast@gmail.com. I think that's enough out of me. So Trask, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? And welcome back.
Well, that was a big, long segue, or introduction, rather. I don't know. We're in Astoria, Oregon, as you said. We're, home of the Goonies, other cult following movies, like Kindergarten Cop. It's a beautiful place. It's a unique market. We've been here for a really long time. My dad started the business. My dad's was an aerospace engineer. He's a smart guy, became a tile guy, came back home. I went away to college and started my own business, and then came back home as well, about 2000. And so my sister has been a part of it since, the running joke we always say is we've been raised in a tile cult, which is,
Hmm.
we didn't have a real flair for Bible verses or hoarding guns, but we were good with tile. So it was a natural fit to just, I mean, and again and again, the trappings of the cult comes up because it is, I just assumed everybody did this, and it's kind of a nutty lifestyle. But, and to zoom forward, like once we went from dad and me and my sister and eventually my son, we grew really, really quickly, but we started small, and I think
Hmm.
that served us really well. We always remained really scrappy, and we still, for better or worse, as we'll talk about, performed a lot like a scrappy little company, even when we were a big mature company. And that was a huge hindrance to us. It also pulled us out of the mud a lot of times. You know,
Hmm.
there's and we had a lot of happy accidents going with the accidental theme. I mean, we would fall into crap, and just because we micromanaged everything, because we were willing to put in 20 hours in a row if we needed to, whatever, we could leverage or dig our way out of a lot of stuff. And it held us way back too, way, way back. And it came to a head, this year, as you
Hmm.
said. Um, but we're not just a tile company. We have a great, big, beautiful showroom. We do retail sales. We do cabinets, cabinet installations, blinds, blind installations. We have a full service slab shop. Um, in about 2006, I ran the slab division, and we jumped in with both feet and leveraged a lot of over $1 million worth of digital equipment. Became one of the early digital stone processing shops on the West Coast, anyway.
Okay.
And so I got my fill of that, and we came full circle. We're a small boutique manual shop now, which is a nice way of saying I got rid of doing 5 kitchens a week because it wasn't worth it. Um, but so we still are a slab fabrication shop. We still sell and install and fabricate stone countertops.
Hmm.
And we're always and predominantly mostly a tile company. So we have big tile crews, and it's coming and going all the time, but we're anywhere from 28 to 35 people. Um, 35 would be really, really at the top end, and 27 or 28 is kind of seeming to be the average because we can't, for whatever reason, keep a hold of people long enough to, you know, hold it above the 30-person mark. Um, but it's big enough that, yeah, suddenly HR becomes a concern, accounting becomes a concern,
Hmm.
bookkeeping. I mean, stuff that warehouse managers and executive teams. I mean, like you get into a realm for a blue collar guy that's unfamiliar waters, and you start looking to the few other people who have taken this far. Not a commercial company, because there's a lot of big commercial companies and there's a lot of big commercial conglomerates I'm aware of, but people that
Hmm.
look like us that do higher end boutique type, you know, direct to customer, lots of hand holding, lots of custom projects. There's not a ton of them in our industry.
No,
And I
there's
think
not.
there's a reason why. There's probably a reason why. It's tough. It's a tough niche,
I
but it's a
it's
good one when you get it figured out.
I besides it being tough, I mean, no, it's not easy to build a company. It's a lot of, oh, I'm just a tile installer, right? Or I'm just a flooring installer, or we I don't know that a lot of tradespeople step back and learn to look at themselves as a business person, and I think that's
Yeah.
one advantage that you've had along the way is your dad is like, it was instilled as part of the cult mindset, like, no, this is a
It was.
business, this is
Yep.
a business, it's not just a trade, and that gives you a huge leg up having that mindset from the get-go, as opposed to getting 20 years deep, 30 years deep into it and then saying,
Yeah.
oh, this is something way different now, where do I go?
And I think that's an important distinction, that since we were little kids, it was dad was always doing the books. He was running profit and loss on jobs when he was just two or three people, and it was always talked about in those terms. And it was always iterated to us that, it wasn't that we were tile installers. It wasn't that we were this. We were running a business. It was always referred to as a viable option too. that we weren't white collar, we weren't blue collar, we were gray collar. We mixed with whoever we chose, but we ran a business first and foremost. And it was always presented to us like that. So I think that makes a big difference in your mindset, that it doesn't matter what we were doing, like this is for profit and we need to run it like a business. That being said, there's all kinds of contradictions in all of us. We have lots of fun ones too. So dad's a really smart guy and a great leader and a good businessman, but he likes to play fast and loose a lot of times. So when we started coming into the business and partnership proper, it was kind of like we were still operating like we were when we were kids, like, hey, Cowboy Dave, and all the rules where we just ran around and did what, whatever. We should have had box vans way before we did. We should have had lots of stuff infrastructure wise way before we did. We grew so big. And we didn't. He still wanted that. I don't know. He didn't want to become a corporation, I think. So it was there, and there's still really an all or nothing sort of vein in us all, which is good and bad again, as we'll continue to talk about.
Well, I think that's okay. So there's disagreement in what running a larger company looks like. You want that family feel, you want that blue collar feel to it, and there's opposition to it being a corporation like a Fortune 500 company. However,
that being said, we have three different entities.
But you're the business is definitely structured.
Business entities. Yeah.
But do you have to make it like dry,
impersonal?
Right? Does it? Yes. No, I don't think so. Right? Like you can have the corporate background, right? And I think that's something you all are looking at doing over there is like, let's figure out these systems and processes and let's have more structure, but let's keep it fun and family oriented, and let's build this culture and make sure we're taking care of people, as opposed to it's all about the bottom dollar. And as you admitted, like, hey, we're in this for a profit, right? And go pick up your profit is not a dirty word hoodie over on the shop, because it's awesome. But there's nothing wrong with making money. But
it's a disservice to our clients if we aren't really profitable in the abstract and in the literal.
I would agree, but just because you're making money doesn't mean you can't take care of people. And I think that's where most people, like, if you're going to get into the politics of it and you want to find out why people hate corporations, it's well, they're making all this money and yet there's still all these people that aren't doing well. And if you break it down, there's plenty of money to go around that the CEOs could still be very rich, but the people at the bottom could make more money. And I think that you're looking at it from that perspective of, I can take care of everyone, but there is a point of, I have to run the company to X amount of profitability for the risk and the reward of it. And then I need to be able to take care of clients if something ever comes up. But what's left is, it doesn't have to go in my pocket. It can go in somebody else's.
And there's dangers in that if you come from a blue collar background too, because we had lean years, really lean years, like growing up. I remember, when through the 80s and all that, like it was tough times sometimes. So there's an empathy that can also be dangerous. There's a fine line we walk between being Haagen-Dazs and Ben and Jerry's. Like, and I mean that because you want to be the black and white business and you want to deal with accounting, you want to be profitable and all of that, and you don't want to be everybody's friend. But at the same time, people love Ben and Jerry. You can't lose the flavor of your company. And people, tend to have a cult-like following revolving around companies that have character and culture. And so we always wanted to retain that. The fine line I'm talking about is we give people bonuses when we see things happening. Sometimes we're actually too generous. In years past, we've wanted to reward more rapidly. We want to see people succeed so badly that we'll actually throw money at them, at times irresponsibly. And that's where some of the structures really helped.
I
But we
think,
still do that. Each of the officers has a real empathetic part, and we've been burned by people a lot.
well, it's
Um,
funny. You have the opposite problem. I think a lot of us will keep employees longer, and you guys have done this in the past too, where you want it so bad for the employee because you don't want to have to train somebody new. You keep around somebody that's
yep,
not performing well because you want it so bad for them. Now you're
yep.
finding good people that you want to encourage to continue to do better, that you're rewarding them too quickly, which makes them think they're better than they are, creating the opposite problem. And so
It's a minefield.
you can do it on both ends, which is scary.
Yeah, and we have. So we're always vacillating back and forth, I think. And I don't know if you ever find the happy medium.
Mm-hmm.
And especially since, look, we're in the people business. That was another constant in our business. Our work is tile and our business is people. Without people, McDonald's is, their ancillary work is burgers and their real business is real estate. But they're also in the people business because without the people, till we have robots doing it all, we're
Mm-hmm.
stuck with people, and people aren't tidy. And people, the waves of qualified people that come to us, there's a remarkable ebb and flow that we've noted over the years. Like the burning question always is, do you go after people or do you go after work? And it's always the one that's the hardest to get. So that's sort of my indicator species. When really good qualified people start showing up, red flags go up out of the blue. Like this person either has a personality conflict or they can't keep a job because who would let this guy go? Or who
Mm-hmm.
would let this gal go? She's too qualified. She's too good. Keep digging because that's a scary proposition.
Well, especially if they're
Unless,
showing up back to back to back,
well, then
then now you
I
have an
start,
economy
look,
indicator.
yeah, we have an economic crisis going on or a problem. Maybe it's localized, maybe it's something else. But yeah, so having a big enough war chest to, you know, even support good people in an interim, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of complexities to people, and it's never as black and white as we want it to be.
Mm-hmm. So I want to add, like, I know the answers, but I want it put out there, right? So
Sure.
essentially, 2 years you 2 years ago, you really stepped back and wanted to start taking a bigger look at the company because you felt there were issues with it. And so, what does that look like to actually have to sit there and, despite the fact you're making great money, what most would consider great money,
Yeah.
uh, you said, no, something's not right here. I want to look at this, right? Like, what was the motivating factor to be able to, like, be challenged on maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be, in your opinion?
Well, this is the blessing and the curse of us. What I alluded to earlier with the all or nothing. Fortunately, we're all kind of wired similarly, and unfortunately, we're all kind of wired similarly. So it's never good enough. I honestly, 4 years ago, I couldn't have told you what my take home pay was, probably. I just knew, just good. I would hear the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't my primary motivation. I was still in that phase, like my son is now, where I was mastering a craft and a trade, and I hadn't really fully transitioned into embracing this as a business full time. I was still more into the hands-on part of it, the mastery of the skills and all of that training. Um, but there's always, no matter at what level we were, I'm always the one rocking the boat. That's my role in this whole gig is I'm the one that's got to say something, and everybody in the meeting goes, oh, "Gee, we're doing great." Do, you know, and I call it passion. They call it dogmatic and a whole range of other dirty words, which is like, just shut up, stop. When is enough enough?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I'm chasing that, when I make $1 million a year or whatever kind of thing. It's I always wanted a system that was self-sustaining, and we've heard traces of this in other industries, very rarely in ours, but in other industries where these owners can step back and put their feet up and look out 30 miles and project a year and dream and do what they want to do and take the company in new directions. And there isn't this urgent, constant, uh, always needed scenario. And that's
Hmm.
what I was getting tired of. And it was about that time I bumped into Stephen Covey's work too. And Stephen Covey, sort of wrote the definitive manual on with like 7 Habits of Highly Successful People on, making distinctions between what's urgent and what's necessary and how to plan appropriately. And my ADD brain loved it and couldn't get enough of it and could absolutely not follow through. But I got all the binders and everything.
I think
But
I don't even think that's an ADD thing. I think that's just a business owner
it
thing of
it
like,
is, but also the way that my brain is wired is part of my gift and flaw too. Like we all have certain aptitudes, and
hmm
mine is I can grasp the concepts, I can see the intangibles, and usually some of the more abstract ideas really, really clearly where nobody else can, and I can't follow through on it.
hmm
I need somebody to execute these things for me, and I need to be like, and it took me a while to embrace this. Like, I have to be my leadership role in this company had to be kind of the Wizard of Menlo Park. I had to walk around with assistants and just point and delegate and not do as much as I wanted to be doing. I'd heard a lot of entrepreneurs say things like, you should be the laziest guy, potentially the laziest guy in the room because you can delegate everything. And that's no small task, but it's hard. But it just kept gnawing at me. And I would bring it up. We didn't have official meetings, but we'd get together and I would always start the crap and the meetings would degenerate until we yelled at each other and threw things. And, you know, again, being raised in a cult, I thought, we weren't making memories unless somebody cries. So I just sort of, and I'm totally serious. I just push it till it goes too far.
hmm
And, we all would get our dopamine fix and then we wouldn't talk for a few days and then something would come of it, but never enough. And I wanted all of it now. I started being able to see a really clear picture of this is how, especially when I started going elsewhere. And that I should mention getting outside of my comfort zone, going out and visiting members of our community that were outstanding and identifying them by going out to the trade shows and getting involved in national organizations and groups and all of that and seeing what other people are doing, because otherwise this is just could be a confirmation bias or just your own little loop. You
Okay.
can tell
Yeah.
yourself all kinds of fibs. So it was really helpful to go outside and see, J&R Tile doing this, Hawthorne Tile doing this. These are people I respected and looked up to, and I knew they were kicking butt. And I saw, um, fortunately, I actually saw their underbelly too, which is another important component we can get
hmm
into. But I also saw them pulling it off in places we absolutely weren't dreaming of pulling it off in. Like there were owners that were doing things and managerial structures that we hadn't crossed that bridge, and it was it confirmed for me like, no, you can do this. This is possible. This can be run like a real business here. And um, so then I had to stir up the crap even more. I would come back from those trips and I would just be like, my dad would call me a whirling dervish, and people literally would just be like, just okay, calm it. I mean, I would just everybody take the day off. I have to tell you everything, and that was not very effective.
hmm
A way of disseminating information was to set the place on fire if you don't listen to me. But it was that kind of burning. That was the kind of burning thing, and it was to the degree even where again, like, shut up. You're looking at your paycheck. To which I would say, no, not really. No, I don't care. It can be better. It can always be better. And that would further ruffle feathers because I became known as the guy that was never satisfied,
Well, but
which,
it wasn't necessarily about the money though. It was about the efficiency of it. Like, do I have to
no,
run
but,
around like a chicken with my head cut off, or can I find a way to have the
well,
same
even,
paycheck, but I just
yeah,
sit behind the desk, right? Like, can it be easier for me to get the same paycheck? It wasn't necessarily that you
totally.
wanted more money, but, and I don't even know that that was
Well, I
coming
didn't
up
know
in the
what I wanted,
conversation.
honestly.
Well, yeah,
Not
that's part
until
of it.
no, in truth be told, when, uh, you came into my life and we got involved in this group, that you're really the first person that I knew all of this stuff. I just didn't want to do it. Remember, I threw myself on the floor and held my breath because I didn't want to set goals.
Hmm.
But I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew I wanted something different and better for us. And so I would use all kinds of manipulative tactics, like I knew my sister wanted more money. So I would, come back the next day. What if we could be 25% more efficient and change nothing with no inputs? And she'd be like, well, I'm listening. And I'm going, okay, this is going to take a while. Can you take the day off? Can you take the rest of the week off? Let's go into a room. And then it would just, because it was like I was just trying to roofie my partners into just, and again, like you said, the pace of understanding, I had it in my head and I knew it was so beneficial that I was willing to do anything, including like maybe tell white lies and manipulate them for their own good.
Well, and I
It
think
sounds a lot like a cult again, doesn't it?
well, I mean, it sounds like the perfect dysfunctional family that works together, right? But
Totally is.
and you transitioned for me so beautifully. I don't even need to lead this interview. It's great. So talking about like the understanding, right? We can only move at the pace of understanding. Your management team, your partnership didn't even have a cohesive idea up until recently. And it was a lot
Correct.
of, well, everyone knows that. We're good. And so one thing I'll throw
Well, it's worse
Trask
than
under the
that.
bus. Well,
Worse than that, because here, let me say this really quick. The assumption, I'm sorry, I get pop-ups. The assumption that everybody knows this was thrown back at me when I challenged it with terms like, if they don't know that, we've got real problems. And I went, no kidding. I think you just nailed it, and then they would just throw their hands up and walk away. So we were worse than denial. Like
well,
we were convinced that we knew what we were doing.
it's funny. So I've been harping on anybody that's been listening. Like I've been on a kick. If you've been paying attention to anything I've been doing for the past like 3 or 6 months, and I've been on this like you got to have core values, you got to have mission, you got to have vision, you got to have all these things. And Trask has come around to that, and he was going to the partners and saying, well, what are our core values? And they're like, well, everyone knows this. We what we stand for. And he was like, yeah, what? And they were like, well, He was like, yeah,
Those things.
I do. What? Tell me. Right? But no one would clearly define what they were, how many they were, how it was, and it led to a problematic situation. It got real nasty.
That's an
around there.
understatement.
And so, but by the time everyone came around to it and finally said, huh, there's something here, it took a minute, right? Everyone had to get on the same page and get to that level of understanding of, okay, we're all going to agree that this is something we need to discuss. And everyone came to it in their own time. But now that everyone's there, the conversations have completely changed, and you've been able to move forward in a much more positive direction where everyone says, okay, I get it. Now we can start taking these things and working with them and moving them forward. And it's actually making a difference instead of you having to sit there and try and be manipulative and, hey, what if we could do this? And you get one person going one way and you got to go, finagle another situation with your dad. And then you get your son in there. And you're doing it.
I was literally. Yeah.
And then they're not on the same page, right? They're just on the page you wanted them to be on.
Well, and in that sense, you outlined it right, but it very much came from like, well, it's the best possible outcome, but it came from some of the darkest places I've ever been this year to what I could only have hoped for was like, as soon as something got traction, that's why I was saying I would do anything to manipulate them or whatever to get something to hold. One basic tenet, one basic process we could sink our teeth into, and I could say, see, now this can flourish in every direction. Like we can build on this from the base. ironically, that's where it got to its darkest hour, was when we got to like level one. And then I saw a glimmer of hope. Everybody, conceded, okay, we're going to sit down. We're going to go into a room. We're going to work out our core values. We're going to write a mission statement. We're going to do, we could see all of this. We downloaded the book Traction. We digested it.
But here's a 40-year-old company, right?
Totally.
Here's
Making good money.
Here's a 40-year-old company doing multiple millions of dollars a year.
Yep.
Sitting there saying, we have to go all the way back to step one. And this is why I've been harping on this stuff. You've tried everything else for 40 years, and it hasn't worked. Then you went back to step one.
And part of it is, and again, it's like, this is based on like natural laws and everything. I mean, it's crazy how this comes together, and like, you will not find anything else. And this was kind of one of my lines of reasoning. Like, go to business at any level. The fundamentals of this processes, the fundamentals of knowing who you are, the fundamentals of all of this remain a constant. I mean, this is through Stephen Covey. This is through the blood veins of every healthy company from any size across the planet. There are just very few deviations. And so, you can take piecemeal, which is what we were doing. We were finding success in certain places, but there were no metrics, there were no rhymes or reasons, there was no consistency, because it was uncomfortable, because it was hard. And even when we genuinely wanted to, you have all these pieces of the puzzle together, but unless you put the base together, or you're erecting a pyramid, we had some stuff so right. Still to this day, we get it right, but we had parts of it that were so right. Like, our culture is so right. Our touch with people was so right. And then it would fall apart because we would make promises about like evaluations and how to metric their, income, progressions through the company, their path through the company. But we didn't know how to do any of that. We didn't have a process for it. So it just fell apart. And so they become like empty promises, and you'd have to go above and beyond over here. And so all you do is just run around and put out fires if you take it piecemeal. And it looks really good on pay. Like, you come in at first introduction and it's awesome. Like, this place, we can really clean up nice if I want to just show the good parts. But the truth is, we were in real trouble. We had been in real trouble for a long time. And I don't mean like we were going to fall apart and lose our business. I just mean it was getting so tiring for so many people for so many years to do the same thing, to have the same failure paths, to have the same glass ceilings, to have no hope that this is ever going to be anything but frustrating at a certain level. And I think that's what guts companies eventually, that don't have that. And the one saving grace we had since we were this whole family thing has been, we will always be progressive enough to put our hat in our hand, admit we were wrong, and come back to the table after we threw a toaster across the room. And that's been our saving grace. But it was really close. Close enough, like there's an image, if you had a camera on me in my office at night going through the actual legal bylaws and talking to my attorney friend on the phone about, I don't even want to say the words, but how do I take advantage of my partners and steal the company? And they were probably, I know they were talking by, like going to vote me out officially. It came to that. And that has never been on the table in our entire history. It was actually a healthy exercise because now we know the buy-sell agreement inside and out.
So we've
it was
learned
an
about
inadvertent way to learn.
We've learned about the company, and we've all gotten on the same page.
We all know what the company is composed of.
It had to get nasty to get better, sadly.
It got better quickly. Yeah.
Yes, it has. I want to interrupt us for 1 second. I got a quick word from Johns Manville. If you're looking for the perfect waterproofing solution for your tile installations, look no further than Johns Manville Go Board. It's time to say goodbye to worry of moisture damage and hello to durable, easy to install tile backer. Go Board is engineered to withstand tough environments providing excellent waterproofing protection. Whether it's your bathroom, kitchen, or any other wet area, GoBoard has got you covered. Don't compromise on quality. Choose JM GoBoard for the ultimate waterproofing peace of mind. Visit your retailer and ask for GoBoard. www.jm.com/GoBoard, and you can learn more, even about all of their fancy. Man, they got a really lenient warranty. It's super cool, and they got all kinds of products that you can use with it. Like, you go on the website, and it'll give you all the different sealants that you can use with their product. You don't have to use GoBoard sealant. Like, great product, lots of options to make it. You know, if a pandemic rolls through again, you never know when you got a Franken-shower or something, and they got options for you. But all right, so it got nasty for a minute, and then we had to get everyone on the same page, which did happen, which is good, because I definitely didn't want to see your company fall apart. That would have been a very, very sad day. But it took a minute to get everyone on the same page and understanding, but you've all been able to come up with a vision now of what you're looking for, where you want to go, how you want to do it, what you're looking for. But now we've run into an entirely new problem because you withheld everything from the company as you should. The last thing you want to do is try and roll out an entirely new system to a company and implement it overnight. So the management team has been meeting, which you actually are meeting more than once a week as the core partners. But you went to have your first ever meeting trying to get the next level of management down recently. And now you're banging your head against a wall again.
Yeah. And this is, so this was also really helpful to have, if you're going through this, and it doesn't matter what it is, for me, it's, being involved in the mastermind group, but having like-minded people around you, maybe objective people. If you're going through this or you're about to go through this, you have to have a sounding board because you're going to go insane. And I don't care at what level you're at, you really need some objective input. Even if it's just, a lot of times it's just kind of therapy, like we talked about in the group the other night. This is just, I needed to talk out loud in front of people I trust. And I needed to be, I need them to reinforce that it's okay that we don't roll this out in front of the whole company right now. We're still hashing this out. It's going to take some time. We were good with that. It's okay to meet, it's not get everything done at once. Like, we found meeting once a week, it was all the busy work, all the stuff we haven't talked about, all the day-to-day stuff. Once we finally got that out, we were kind of out of gas. So we'd meet again. And that next one we picked up was more about the long-term vision stuff, the leadership stuff, the more abstract stuff. Those are fun meetings. Those are more productive meetings. Those are, tell me again how much money we're making. Tell me again about this program we're going to roll out. This sounds like what I've wanted to do. Are you going to do what you want to do? What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Those are the fun things and the fun benefit. And we started to see that. And that was where things really turned a corner for us cohesively as at the top, right? The leadership, the ownership. Mm-hmm. And once we had that nucleus established, our synergy was back. It was, I don't know, beyond hopeful. It gave me a glimmer of, it fired us all up. So now it's time, while we're fired up, to roll this out, because everybody's kind of known something's been going on. I mean, it's like having kids in the house. They're professional lie detectors. People are. So they know something's up. And we all came up with, like, the press cover story, as any administration should, like, things are going well, they're improving, and we're continuing to plan for the future. No further questions. It's like, that's how we're answering questions to, the people that have been with us for a long time. Mm-hmm. They know us. They're like, they're freaking family. And so that staved them off enough, but they knew something was up. And then we decided, like, at that certain level where you have basically managers that are your first line of defense, they're essentially your executive team, the department heads. And we brought them in, and I had started to say, and again, I was really proud because, our meetings have become so efficient. We all had showed up with like agendas. It was, an outline. It was tidy. It didn't have scribbles and stuff on it. It was really neat. And I had just started going down my list and doing the introduction about why I'd called this, and I thought it was neat to have the first executive meeting. And it went totally downhill from there when I said executive, because we aren't executives, and there was argument and diatribes about why we're this, and I'm just like, look, forget I said that word. Okay. What we're doing here in terms of, being the heads of the departments, and somebody's like, I don't know what department you think I'm running. And I was just like, here's my notes. It was like, we had to spend a half an hour hashing out who we are and what we are, and define terms because they were objectionable. And I'm not talking in a woke way. I'm talking in like a way that was goofy and absurd. And I'm looking over at my sister like, really? I thought we were going to have a meeting. Like, and she's looking at me the same way, like, so this is the way it's going to go, huh?
But it's funny because you just got through, like, this was the point. Like, when we started talking, I was pointing out to you, you just spent months doing this, right? And so you were on board, but you never got anybody else on
no,
the
and
train
I literally
with you.
Called you. I was at Home Depot walking around calling you going, yeah, but this is absurd. Why will they not just listen? Like, because again, we know it all now. We do know it. We do know what we stand for, and it should be easy because we've gone through the gristmill. We've worked this out over a month or two, and now we have this clear vision. So of course they're going to just take it from us, without exception. I mean, not even ask a question. That was in my head. I just thought that they would, I don't know, break out in song or something. I mean, it would.
Think that's what most business owners think, right? Is I'm gonna say, well, I say jump, you say how high,
right?
That's how it's supposed to work.
You may have another, yeah,
but that's not how it works. Why? I don't want to buy into it if you don't tell me why I need to buy into it.
And my response to you was, I now know why people say ridiculous things like, because I said so. Okay, don't ask questions. Just short term, quick fix, dumb, Neanderthal type. And that's where I was at. I was reduced to like, you know what? How about because I said so? You're an executive team. Okay, just shut up. I have a whole list. I just wanted to get it in place because we saw such good results, and I didn't want to have to start back over again. Like it feels like telling the same story 800 times. And I think the mantra and the understanding is, well, look, I gave you an example quite a while ago. My brother-in-law was a real perfectionist in the trades. And at some point he quit working with us, but we had a meltdown at some point, and I had tremendous respect for his skills. Amazing talented guy, just amazing hands. And at some point he said, every job is just effed up. And I said, exactly. That's what we do. Like I thought you knew that. Mm-hmm. Like that is, you just defined our job is to take things, we're going to make a round planet plumb and square and flat. I mean, we're who they call to make things nice. That's what we do. Every job's a challenge. Well, he was looking for that one mythical, perfect job a year. And I was like, dude, it doesn't exist. This is why you're unhappy all the time. This is just, construction is like an act of containing a train wreck. It's just, that's what this whole construct is. So settle in and know that this is what you do. And yet I can't digest my own advice, which is basically what you threw at me. And a lot of other people in the group said, settle in, chill out. This is going to take a while. Like, why would you think that it was going to happen perfectly?
But I think that's one of the biggest things here is, one, we underestimate the power of what we actually have to communicate to employees to get them on board. We just expect them we know what we're doing. We've been dealing with it for months or years or whatever, right? Again, this company's 40 years old. You guys have finally decided, we're going to go off to the right, and we're moving at this pace. And then you went to the next level and you were like, we're going off to the right and at this pace. And they're like, wait a minute, what? Like, no, what do you mean we're going to the right? And why are we going there? And how are we going to get there? And who's coming with us? And like, they have 8,000 questions, and you're just like, no, off to the right and over here at this pace. We all know, like, why don't you know?
I'll tell you when we get there. Yeah, no more questions.
And so we forget how important the communication is, but then it's that matter of, you know, that they don't know, but you don't, it's not that you don't care. It's frustrating because
it feels inconsequential.
I think in a sense, I think what a lot of people are missing are, we get so caught up in, and this has been doing the show for 4 years and then have the mastermind groups and stuff. The biggest thing, like, I call it a business therapy mastermind group now for a reason. And it's because we don't externalize a lot as business owners. We get so caught up in everything else we're doing. We're putting out all the fires and we're trying to come up with a vision. And then a lot of us are owner operators. And so you're having to put in the actual time doing everything.
Which is an impossible task.
Yeah, there's not enough time to go around, right? And then you get home and you're talking to, if you've got a wife or a girlfriend or a husband or whatever it is that you have, and there's kids involved, and you're rushing them from this thing to that. Like, where's the time to stop and actually get the 30,000-foot view? But where's the time to externalize? And that's been the difference, is that you were able to externalize these things, and a lot of times you hear yourself talking, you're like, man, I sound stupid right now. Like, what am I even saying? And then you realize the problem. And that's been the biggest thing, is just self-externalization and the ability to have it. And whether
even hearing some other people say it sometimes. So last night I had an epiphany at the end of a really long session we did. It was almost 3 hours, and I was tired and everybody was hungry. And Matt just went down a road. And, you know, like, again, me and Matt have been in this group a long time, and we're running some parallel paths, despite we're a little different size companies and all that, but it doesn't really matter. We're having some really parallel things. Shouldn't surprise us. We just both own a business and we're both going through similar things. So of course, but he said something that was really, I just stayed with it all night last night, which is, Matt spent a lot of time. So we spent a ton of time figuring out who we were and constructing this big blueprint of where we're going and all of this. And we spent not 1 minute on the rollout, not 1 minute addressing how are we going to roll this out to each individual entity and group and person. How does this look? How do we want to frame it? How do we explain it? How do we reassure them that things like, hey, this isn't, we're not giving you an evaluation because you're doing your job poorly. We're just letting you know that it's a thing we're doing now. You know, all these different things we never considered. Matt spent a lot of time actually figuring out how to roll it out, figuring out how to explain what he's been doing, figuring out not just that he's been doing all this thinking, but how to articulate it to others. And it dawned on me suddenly that was one of our issues, is we didn't spend any time thinking about how to convey it to everybody, because, you know, it's almost like we hit the default mechanism again, because come on, everyone knows.
It's right back into old habits.
Totally. So easy. Yeah.
Okay, so now we had what we thought was going to be this meeting of trying to roll something out, and you ended up having to sit there and communicate with them of like, okay, no, we're doing this and that and the other thing, and we can look at it like this. And you might think you're going to get somewhere next week, but I can almost guarantee you're not, because you have to get the department heads up to speed. And with where you're at, that's when I think you start developing, how do we roll this out to the other 25, 28 employees of, okay, you guys are in charge of your departments. What does it look like to get where we want to go and how we want to do it and how we want to hold people accountable? Let's start really developing this out. And how do we use you to disseminate that information, right? We all need to work together to make this happen. Let's start building it out with you, right? And so you want this rolled out by the end of the year, and you want everyone on board and all the employees to be like, yay, we love our new company. There are months and
Yeah,
months of work ahead of you, but that's not the
it's okay.
alternative. Well, correct, because the alternative is we go back to let's get rid of the new guy you hired that's doing scheduling and managing crews and putting them
Yeah,
together and figuring out who needs to be where. Like he's kicking butt and taking names for you and freeing you up and your sister
yeah.
up to have more time to look objectively at your teams. So let's get rid of him and let's put you both back in charge and send you around like chickens with your heads cut off. Because I
Right.
mean that's worked for 40 years. So let's do that.
Well, and again, back to these counterintuitive things, like these unintended consequences are around every corner. And so I'm already anticipating. Um, I spent a little time today with Wes and had mentioned something along the lines of I I don't know how else to say it. So I was trying to explain how to get I need to get we need to get updates from that department, right? From, for example, this corner of the field
Mm-hmm.
operation. And what I'm trying to put into words is I don't need to know everything. You're my red tape. I need you to just filter and give me the highlights so we could be efficient about it. That felt like an insult to him
Mm.
because so again, things where you would think I wouldn't have to be delicate, you have to think about better because he construed it as I just thought you had always been so involved and interested. And it's like, it's not that I'm not interested. It's just that I have to be interested in new things now. I have to be interested in a different time horizon. I have to be, I can't be down in the engine room with you anymore as much as I love tinkering on the ship's engine because we tend to hit icebergs. I have to go look at the horizon and do calculations for what's over the horizon. And if I'm not up at the bridge, there should be alarm bells running because no one knows where the ship's going. It's just full steam ahead. And we're down there like, this is awesome. I love how we tap and thread this thing. You want to change the oil again? This is so much fun.
No, I think
And
that's a
I
great
also know
example.
I know why owners and operators get sucked into that too, because even though it can be physically hard and mentally taxing, it's a hiding place. It's my happy place because it's what I did my whole life. I can go route a job with my eyes closed. I can put my headphones on and turn off my phone, and I can also tell everybody on my staff or anybody that needs me because I've abandoned my other post, don't bother me. I'm in the middle of an emergency, taking care of
Mm-hmm.
business here.
Well,
That
we're
is
artisans first, and that's the problem.
it is a problem because we can revert back to that like feral cats, and we have to be honest with ourselves. A lot of times we're hiding. We're hiding from what we're supposed to be doing because it isn't fun anymore. Like it was fun to
Mm-hmm.
just get off my knees and go plan over the future, plan over the horizon. And then when it turned into real work, it was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go back over here. I'm
Yeah.
going to put my headphones on. Don't bother me.
Well, and I think so. One thing I see, and this is why I think a lot of companies may hate like the 1 day bath companies. Those aren't started by generally an installer. That's started by a guy that has some capital to invest in a franchise system and
How
say,
about Empire
I,
Carpets?
I'm going to make some money,
Yeah.
right? And so it's a guy or a gal with a business mentality going in and saying, okay, this can be lucrative. We can run these profit margins. I can find people to do the work, right? They're looking at it from a business the entire time, as opposed to where a lot of the people that listen to this show come from as owner operators on the floor. They came up, they went out on their own, they've now established a name. You have so much invested in all of this. Look, folks, I get it. I don't want to let go either, but Trask makes a great point. Like he's got to go up in the crow's nest. Well, Dad's got the wheel, and his sister's shoveling coal into the engine, and he's got to trust his operations manager to be tinkering on the engine and maintaining it. Like, he can't come out of the crow's nest he's looking for icebergs and whatnot to go down there and get
charting a
distracted
course.
anymore. Correct. Like, everyone has to take on new roles, and I've seen big changes since he's been able to actually step into the role he was supposed to be doing, and his sister's been able to step more into the role she's supposed to have been doing, because they found a way to actually free up more time by
We bought ourselves freedom.
They did. They took a hit. They stopped putting money in their own pockets to hire an employee to free up time, which long term should generate way more income, because they can actually focus on landing more projects and knowing where the company's going to go. But
ultimately, the premise actually was, even if it was a break-even venture, so if we made the same amount of money but had a different level of sanity, a better life,
correct,
then it's a total win.
I agree.
And you have to think in those terms. You have to think of the opportunity cost in both directions.
And I think that's where a lot of us get caught up and hung up and I know I did, right? I was so determined to be able to pay off my school loans and pay off my house and pay off just my wife's school loans. I wanted to be debt free, and I took all the money out of the company as opposed to using it to grow the company and then just paying down some stuff slowly. And now there's nothing there. It's great to be debt free, folks. Don't get me wrong. Although I think I took a little too much pressure off myself, and I need to go find a way to add more. But
you made an interesting point there that I know, reading between the lines, knowing you, because we've talked about this, and I just saw this the other day too. If things are, and again, fine line, very fine line, but if things are too smooth a sailing, there's no impetus that really is pushing me. We'll do a lot of times as humans what humans do, which is take that easy path and settle.
Correct.
And so this is like, my son is young and full of pea and vinegar. And this is a real distinct advantage for me suddenly, because he's kind of threatening me subtly and in the correct way. He's pushing buttons in me he doesn't know he's pushing, because I feel like I've done my job in one respect. He's way better than he knows he is. He's better than I am, and he's still hungry. So like this Saturday, he's building this laminated porcelain slab sink in his spare time. And he's learning. And it's the same shades of stuff I did, tinkering. Mm-hmm. But you're just doing exercises to push yourself. But he's down there on Saturday. He's down there on Sunday. He's texting me, and I'm beat. I don't want to go down to the shop on Sunday. I've gotten out of this thing, He's going, well, I don't know. Maybe if, somebody wants to come down and, lead by example. He's subtly always pushing, which is good, because it helps me not get too comfy. And we should have some impetus that's making us step up and lead. And those are also that sort of narrative in the back of my head when I want to go home early. I want to make sure my son sees that I'm still here doing important stuff, and I don't take off and leave him with a bad taste in his mouth.
Yes, it's one thing.
Certain important things.
It's one thing to want the company you can walk away from and let it run, and you just collect a check every quarter. And I think, we all think that would be nice and it would be great, but I want to be able to tinker, right? And I think that's the role you're moving into. Papa Bergerson ain't getting any younger, and he's not talking about phasing himself out, but he continually continually steps back a little bit and a little bit more, and you're moving more into, like you said, right? You're now the visionary role, and you're trying to figure out where the company's going to go moving forward, and you are putting in work in a different way now, and you've been able to come to terms mentally with that, which I don't know that a lot of owners can. They think sitting in the office, looking over the numbers, figuring out where you're going to go next and how you can expand into new markets or offer new product offerings is being lazy, right? But
Right.
you have your son coming up and saying, no, we can do better. We can do more. Like he's taken over that role of where you were at in the field, but it's also challenging you to be like, oh, well, okay, I got to show him like I'm still here. I'm not around being lazy. And even without this dynamic of the family involved and there being partners, folks, if you have two employees and they think you're being lazy by going out and running the estimates during the day while they're installing, this is why you need to be able to have these conversations with your team and communicate like, look, dude, I've installed for 10 years already. I know how to do this. I can install circles around you too. But
Yeah.
if I don't go over here and talk to Mrs. Jones, you're not working next week.
Well, and
So
also
this
you
is
can
what we
instill it
do.
as a complimentary thing too, by saying, I finally trust you enough to do this, and I'm going to have to step out of the way.
Correct.
And and my dad did a good job of doing that continually, stepping out of the way until the point where he's coming in and going, oh, tell me what you're doing here. What is this? And at some point you realize, wow, he genuinely doesn't know what the cutting edge is anymore. He isn't supposed to. That would be a mistake if he was. He has another role. And now I'm finally fulfilling that same kind of prophecy, like with my son, where he's actually bringing technology and stuff to me, and I'm going, whoa, what did you do there? And he goes, oh, yeah, you should have seen it. Right? That's the natural progression of things. I'm going to have to get okay with letting go of being, the end all be all of the cutting edge of technology in this company. That's not me anymore. He's going to take that.
So
but it's not easy to let go of.
No, it's not. And especially, again, being an owner operator, being an artisan, like I don't want to let go of any of it as nor do you. It's a harder struggle than just going into something knowing that I can apply X amount of dollars, receive a system and start running it. That's an option. You can do that. But to know that you can create something life-changing for another person with your own two hands, it's very, very powerful, and it is hard to give up and let other people do that, especially when your name's on the building, man. That's even harder. Well, it's not generically named.
Yeah.
It's your name is on the building.
That's true. There's another motivation though too. When you get to a certain point, and this was kind of exciting because people throw this around loosely, but when you go, hey, if you could do whatever you wanted to do within this company confine or even take in a different direction, what would you do? And you actually stop and pause and think about that, because most of your life you don't have enough time, if you're an installer, to sit and go, I don't know, I would go out and start a welding shop and mess with different, whatever, build sinks or what. I've gotten to that place, and it's more challenging than you would think, because you actually have to stop and think about, well, is that the most profitable thing? Is that the best thing? And I'm still going back and forth with that. But generally speaking, what I've found is when you give people that opportunity, even at like a managerial level, there are a lot of times they won't be totally forthright and honest, because we're still programmed with guilt. So I've thrown this at Wes, our most senior field manager. Like, you've earned the right to get off your knees. What would you like to teach? Would you like to oversee jobs? What would you? He ends up going. He wants to keep going back on his job and get on his knees again because he feels guilty. Mm-hmm. I'm not making the company money. It's so hard to unprogram this. Like, he ironically is more profitable and is a better asset to the company if he's genuinely happy and doing, like, if he shows up and goes, man, I love my job every day. This isn't even work. It's crazy that I can pull this off. And then they'll start feeling guilty about it. I've had this honest heart to heart. We're having this thing. We're going through it right now. Mm-hmm. It's just like, you can't keep doing this. It's not sustainable. And ironically, if you are super happy, typically, and super excited, it's contagious. And the company's going to benefit from you in that role that you love even more. There's times I've had to run them, like, go home, leave, go. You're on salary. You're done for the day. You just won't, out of guilt. It's a tough cycle to break.
It is, but I think you all are moving in the right direction to instill better a better culture and better values into your
Healthful.
younger employees, that they will see that they can grow into these roles and be treated well and taken care of down the road. Whereas Wes is, he's from a different generation, and
They were they were they
it
were
was
okay with
work until you die.
until you're broken.
Put in your 40 years, get your Rolex, and walk away. But you are going to
Yeah.
earn every bit of that Rolex that isn't worth what you put in
But you're going to
to
be
get it.
crippled along the way too.
Yes.
You've given away your best years, and nobody was talking about taking time for you and making this sustainable. And that just isn't in their lexicon for that generation, sadly, for most
Correct.
of them.
But if you can get them on board with it somewhat, and doing what you're saying is inspiring others, and then you build this
Yeah.
culture around building up this new generation and working them up through your systems, you continue to grow your company, you take care of people, you show them that there's options, you teach them that there's more to it than just the hand skills, and the ones that want to move into management have that option going forward, and they know that eventually I can be valuable in a different way. Just because I'm not physically producing profit with a product doesn't mean I don't bring value to the company. And I think that's hard even for owners to understand, is once you step away,
It
like,
is.
how am I making the company money if I just
Yeah.
determined which way we're going?
Well,
But
because as
you're
an owner,
making the company money.
we still add it up in our head every day. I didn't bring in any money. The intangibles are those are really hard for,
Hmm.
hands-on people to get their brain around. Like, how am I generating value here? Seems crazy.
It does, and it doesn't. When you understand how it works, and that you can't go anywhere and generate any value for anybody if you don't understand how to come up with ideas to generate value, right? It's circular.
Yeah.
But you have to actually understand that you being able to come up with a direction of where the company's going is really valuable, and stop focusing so much on. I think the big point to this discussion is, look, I lied to y'all. Okay, Trask isn't. Yes, he's making money on accident in some ways, but there was a lot of really good things in place. They needed tweaking, and I don't know that enough people are taking the time to step back and actually look at what they need to tweak. And again, I understand, as an owner
Well,
operator, it's hard to do, but
I'll
you got to find
summarize
the time.
that in an easy to understand format, which is, conservatively, and we look at quarterlies, monthlies, lots of different metrics. And I just sat with my dad this morning again for about an hour. And I love when he comes to me like this and he goes, I have looked at it 7 different ways and it's right. And we're up another 25%. And I just smile and I'm just like, we knew that there was again, an intangible. We knew that there was a ghost in the metrics there that was almost like a lost leader or something. You couldn't assign it. But if we all got on the same page, we knew there was a huge efficiency gain
Mm-hmm.
and a culture gain. And how do you measure synergy and all of that? And I mean, it is a good metric because our workload has really stayed constant, yet profitability is up. And that's a hard one to explain. Our mistakes are down. You can go until you go blind. And it's really hard to put an actual number figure on it, but it's there. It's there on
Mm-hmm.
the bottom line again. So just getting that glue, taking all, even if you have bits and pieces of stuff that's working like we did, and you finally put them all together, and we just started. I mean, truth be told, we just started after 40 years of really solidifying our foundation. And we're seeing immediate gain. Like, there's very few places in the world where that's sustainable or isn't a scam or actually holds the test of time. And this is one of those rarities. Actually does work. These systems and processes, and it all has to be, you can't pick and, well, I'm just going to build culture. or I'm just going to be the best tile setter in the world or the
Mm-hmm.
best craftsman. They all have to be, they're intrinsically tied. They're inextricably tied. Um, Once it all comes together, yeah, there's a wild card factor there. It's a big one.
Yes, and look, if you truly want a business, then he's not lying. Like it's you can't pick and choose and say I want this little thing and this little thing and this little thing, and I'm going to ignore the rest. You need all of it. You
Yeah.
need the people, you need the systems, you need the processes. You got to actually do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And I think the beauty of it is again, it was a 40-year process to get to a blow up that nearly lost you control in the company. To you guys are kind of like in this, you're like a phoenix right now, right? Like it's
It's
almost
the honeymoon stage all over again.
it's almost a theoretical rebirth.
Yes, it is.
Nothing's changed other than people got together and said, you know what? Okay, we all agree something's broken. Let's
Yeah.
fix it. Let's build it from the ground up and do it better this time. But your difficulty and the analogy I always use is Bergerson Tile and Stone is driving an ocean liner right now. It's not going to be easy to turn 180, even 90 degrees, right? It's going to take hours to get this giant ship course corrected.
Right.
Anyone else, if you're doing less than $1 million a year, let alone if you're owner operator and you're still under like 350,000, you have so many advantages right now.
Oh, you can pivot on a dime.
Oh my God, you're in a canoe you're not even in a canoe, you're in a damn kayak. Like you can take the one paddle and just stick it out to your side 3 feet and start spinning in a circle. Like it is so easy.
But it means you realize the gains immediately too.
Well, but it's so, look, you might think it's useless because I'm just by myself. I don't need any of this stuff. Yes, you do. Because the minute you hire somebody, you start teaching them and they immediately will buy into it and appreciate how organized you are, that there is a company in place. Why do all these people leave these small companies? Because there's no direction. There's nowhere for them to go. They don't have any advancement opportunities. You're going to be able to offer all of that from the very beginning. And
well, even if you do, and we do a lot of that, above and beyond stuff for the culture, and life circumstances are going to dictate you're going to lose a percentage of them anyway. And we just lost a guy because he got a way better opportunity, to the degree that I hated to see him go, but I said, dude, you should do this.
Mm-hmm.
You really, if this is true, you really should do this. You're going to lose a few to that, even if you're providing everything. And I mean, it was like tearful. He didn't want to leave. I didn't want him to leave, but it was clearly such a gift that he fell into. You have to take it, opportunity of a lifetime.
But
so yeah,
it's going to make your life easier though. There's going to be less to battle if you implement it from day one, as opposed to 40 years in and 35 employees.
Yeah. Well, and one more
it's
analogy,
going to grow with you,
is,
and you can always change it. That's the thing here, right? It's going to grow. It's going to change. It's going to evolve with you. It's easier to evolve it instead of trying to create it to fit.
But don't. So most people aren't going to. The last time we went through a metamorphosis was in the big downturn, 2008. Mm-hmm. It's the best thing that happened to us since this last thing, because we were making great money. We had a huge company, great showroom, and somebody turned the faucet off. I mean, I said that last night. I like crawled under my desk at one point and went to, like, is the phone unplugged? I mean, it just shut off so fast. I had to sell my personal truck to make payroll 1 month and drove a company van around. It was humiliating and awful. And it was the best thing that ever happened to us, because we were forced to survive by getting into the business of doing business. The next turn, we all paid our houses off too. We all had a whole different thing, a whole new outlook that carried us out a lot better. We were still broken in many respects, but we had learned some important things, which was how to come back. But all that to say is, I had to create a storm. I don't know why, because things are pretty smooth sailing right now. And most people aren't prompted to interrupt smooth sailing. You're in the middle of that nice cruise and it's flat water. There's no need to like go check the lifeboats. And, like you need a lot of people are going to need a little bit of a storm to force like that unthinkable change because the change just doesn't come natural to people, most people. So a lot of people will put it off like, no, I'll get there when you're never going to get there.
Mm-hmm. Got to make the time. This is why I say,
Yeah.
folks, I know you're sick of me saying it. I'm sick of saying it. 15 minutes a day is like the bare minimum of what you should be doing. Step back, take the 30,000-foot view, work on a system, work on a process, work on figuring out what your employee handbook looks like or what it looks like to walk into how do we even start a project when we go, right? We arrive, we introduce ourselves, we start bringing in these tools, whatever it's going to be, right? What does our sales process look like? Do you even have a set sales process? You probably follow some sort of a script all the time, but actually figure out your
even
script.
Start this sometimes this is a good one, and I know you've gone through this, and I kind of went through it. One of the best returns on money is staying healthy. Like take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health, and then get yourself in order. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about like you got to go save the planet. You can't make your own bed. Like get yourself together. This is going to be hard.
Yep.
And strengthen yourself, and you'll gain confidence too. Your wife's going to look at you a little more frequently, and a little spring in your step.
Correct.
Now you can take on your company.
Truth be told, one of the reasons why not much has happened with Floor Academy or me trying to run my flooring business is I was such a mess. Like I'm still trying to lose weight, and I'm putting so much effort into getting my mental and my physical health back.
Yeah, but you physically transformed over the last year. Like physically, absolutely metamorphosized.
Yes.
It's a good thing.
And it has been. It's been great. But I have been putting so much effort there isn't the time to put it into the company. Although, and that sounds bad because by me fixing me, like it is affecting how the company is going and evolving. So I'm still putting time there. It's just I'm not working on the things that I feel I should. And that gets frustrating.
If you're playing a long game,
it is. And that's it.
This is not unlike a couple working on their marriage, taking time for themselves and not letting the kids direct everything for a bigger, better picture. That's
Correct.
A more healthful thing,
Yes. And it's been hard to realize that, right? To come to terms with, hey, okay, hold on. It's okay for me to do this and not worry about having to do it. And if that's where you're at, folks, yes, if that's where you're at, like go work on you, right? 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. Like, look, I'm taking 2 hours to walk in the morning. There's a reason I don't have free time to build the business and put in all of the time. When I was running the flooring company full time, it was 8 to 10 hours a day doing that. And then I would come home and record a podcast, or I would be doing the mastermind group, or I would be looking for the content to start recording something new or editing, or all of that free time has been moved into me working on me.
Yeah, but isn't there a confidence that you came through the other side when you saw it through and you found out you could get your butt out of bed and walk 2 hours in the morning? Suddenly, a lot of other things became viable, possible, and realistic.
Oh, 100%. I'm over here like, oh, I need to work on this thing and I need to get this developed. And like that time's gone because it's all focused on me. And so if that's where you're at, again, it's a long-term play of I'm going to fix me so that when I do decide like I'm where I want to be, and I know where that is, I have a goal of where I want to be weight-wise and where I want to be mentally, I'm going to get there. And then that frees up to, it's easier to maintain than it is. It's way harder to lose the weight. It's easier to maintain it. I can go down to like a 30-minute walk every day and still tracking my calories. And then I can continue to do something where, I work on my mindset and whatnot. But then I freed up in
business though.
It's an hour and a half that I freed up. Right. And so now I can take that hour and a half and I can start investing it back into my family or my kids or into the business, wherever it needs to be put. I just got an hour and a half back. But if I start trying to do that now, it's all for naught, in my opinion, because I'm not in a place to be able to handle what I actually want to build. It's just it's gonna crumble again. I think you talked earlier about, like, you know, having the pyramid, and we have these systems and processes in place, and you think you have this strong base, but you don't. It's missing a corner and it's kind of wobbly. There will be an article coming out, and then the talk I'm going to do it at Tice, it's confirmed, is flipping your org chart upside down. And so I think even just having
that in an instant,
having this mindset of having this company that's flipped upside down, it's so much more important to have all your ducks in a row if you're balanced on a point as it is that big, strong base.
So everything, instead of coming from the top down, it can equally be likened to everything has to critically be formed from the
ground
point
up. Yes. I have to disseminate outward as a leader. And it's on me to, right? This is your visionary role, right? I have to disseminate the vision correctly that everyone gets it. In the meantime, it's all resting on that. But it's not just that. Like, the company as a whole, let's flip it upside down, right? Stop looking at, like, oh, I have this big, strong base to work off of.
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't. You have a single point to work off of, and you want to make it be so efficient that it just balances in place. Yes, shit's going to go sideways, folks. I get it. But that's where we can communicate, and we can move some weight at the top of the triangle, right? And we take a guy from this crew and we move him over to this one. Mm-hmm. And so we're not leaning out of balance anymore because we were able to shift the parts, as opposed to if we pull out a corner of this big, strong base, it's totally going to fall because we don't have a way to put that piece back in. So it's just a different way of looking at it. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's why I'm okay with, like, okay, let me not try and, like, really build anything where I am building something. I'm building me so that I can run efficiently, and then I can balance everything on top of me a lot better.
It's worth noting to me, though, too, like you said, once you get to your ideal set point, you've realigned your basal metabolic rate. Mm-hmm. And now suddenly, you can kind of just maintenance, work out every day. It's not unlike that in business. When you get things figured out, it doesn't have to be that hectic pace all the time. Like, suddenly it gets easier to maintain that once everything's in place. Definitely. Remarkably easy.
Totally. We gotta wrap this up. I gotta get to my next thing. And I knew we were gonna go longer than what I was planning.
We can edit a lot of it out.
Editing. We don't do that on this show.
Oh boy.
You got any? Never, ever. In the very early stages, I took out the ums and ahs, and in the first couple, like 2 or 3 episodes, I did that, and then I was like, this takes too long. This is nonsense. So what gets recorded is what you get. Any last minute thoughts? Anything we didn't hit on that we should have?
If it resonates with anybody, I'm always available. You can put my contact info and all of that. I mean, I will have an honest conversation with anybody. And I think we're missing some of that, as we talked about earlier, that it's really easy to polish the way we look on the outside. And I think the most identifiable and most honest thing we can do is show our underbelly a little bit, and start having more honest conversations instead of, social media has made it so easy to show our idealized lives. And the fact that none of us are really living idealized lives should strike us as odd.
Yeah. Stop looking at, the
We're
grass
not
is
all
always
airbrushed.
greener on the other side. You don't know what's happening inside your neighbor's home. They may have,
Yeah.
the doctor and the stay-at-home mom and the two Mercedes and little Johnny and little Susie, and it looks great. But
Yeah.
dad's an alcoholic beating his wife, and
Yep.
the
And I think the more
whatever.
vulnerable, it takes a lot of confidence to be vulnerable. The more vulnerable we become, the more other people are inclined to also be honest. And it's a better bond, all the way around. We'll all be better for
Definitely.
it if we start talking in those terms.
Well, so you want to put it out there? What is it? It's cnctheworld@me.com.
Yep.
Okay. You want to give a phone number? I don't care. You can
Yeah,
do whatever you're comfortable with.
it's a business phone, 503-440-2470. Like I said, I love to talk shop, and we all learn from each other. So if anybody's going through stuff and they want to go, hey, I was in that position. This is how we all learn,
Mm-hmm.
is we reach out to other people in the same situations or
Build
similar.
build your network, folks. It's
Yep.
important. All
Yep.
right. Awesome. Thank you, Trask. Always
Pleasure.
always a pleasure. And always longer conversations than we ever planned on. But
The spice of life.
yeah, correct. It's fun. What do I got? I got a couple words from the sponsors. So listeners, it's nearing show season again, and I want to remind you that the International Surface event is returning to Las Vegas January 24th through the 26th. So mark your calendars now, because I know you're not going. This is for you, Trask. 24th through the 26th. Get your people on it. Have them book it all up now. Floor Academy podcast listeners get the opportunity to register for free using the promo code Kyle. You can't screw it up. It's my name, Kyle. It gets you that free exhibition pass. Whether you're an installer, retailer, distributor, or serve in another capacity within the industry, attending TICE is... Where am I? I've totally lost myself. Attending TICE is a solid resource to expand your knowledge and networking base. And it is. It's I met Trask there, and we've developed a wonderful relationship by being able to hang out and continue.
Gotta get involved.
That's exactly it. Look, the products are great, and that's the next thing, right? We can see the trends, we can see the products. It's about people, folks. Always comes down to people. The
people we've sat and had a drink with till 2 a.m, or the people I have made phone calls to, and they've put money in my pocket. They've benefited us to no end.
Yes, it's way more valuable than, again, the show is great, and I'm not downplaying what you can get out of the show, but the relationships you form are way more valuable and worth the cost of going to the show. So stay up to date with the International Surface Event page on Facebook or online at intlsurfaceevent.com. And lastly, you know the grind, the dust, the rain, the cold. We do too. We're IQ Power Tools, born from the sweat and grit of two Masons who knew there had to be a better way. We're not just making tools, we're elevating the whole damn game. From our hands to yours, our story is your story. So let's cut the dust, not the ambition. Can't wait to meet you where it all happens, the job site. For more information on IQ Power Tools and their products, check out the link in the show notes. And do me a favor, folks, go in the show notes, click on the link. I love that IQ has come on board, but they're tracking, and so you got to go click the link so that they know that you're listening and paying attention and all of that stuff. And just go check out their stuff, man. It is, if you're in the tile game.
That was a good blurb, by the way. Somebody from IQ knows what they're talking about. That was actually pretty good.
They they wrote some great copy. They're changing their I always talk about, you got to have a story, right? Like, we got to tell a story. They have a marketing team that just came up with all of this stuff. They're changing the direction they're kind of pitching things and making it less about like, hey, I just want to sell you a tool, which, look, yes, they want to sell
I also
you a
like
tool,
that they're promoting health of the installers.
Correct. Look, they got great products. If you're in tile and you don't know what they have, I don't care what other people say. Go check out their stuff. It's a new tool. It's a different kind of cutting technology. It's not going to chip as bad as you think it is. You have to learn how to use it. Go check out their saws. Super cool. But no matter what field you're in, go check out their vacuum. Okay. If you want to be able to get into dustless tile removal, if you want to hit OSHA standards and keep yourself safe while you're like using a grinder and you're sick of a shop vac, their vacuum is the best priced vacuum you can buy. I promise. Like, you don't have to go drop. Like, I have a Ermator S26. They've dropped that model and bought out by Husqvarna, and it's some new model, and I don't know it, but it's like a $2,300 vacuum. The IQ vac is like $1,000 now, and I can do all the dustless tile removal I want with that, and it hook it up to my grinder, and it's perfect. I can still put a dust deputy on it if I want, even though I don't need to. Amazing tool.
You'd be hard pressed to find somebody that isn't going to pay more money for that setup to be dustless in their home.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be crazy not to move this direction.
It comes at a premium. It's in your best interest for your health, especially if you have employees. The OSHA standard is that they can only breathe in so much silica dust, so you're kind of forced to. As an owner-operator, you can neglect not to, but why would you want to? And then you can offer a better service to your clients. But they have, like, their vacuum is great. I have one. It works amazing. And I was impressed that I didn't have to have the bigger, more expensive vacuum to be doing it. So it's a lot of folks try and go with the whatever the tool company is. Those, like, the vacuums are like $600, and they have.
They're just rebranded.
They're all rebranded for the most part. There's like 2 different models, and they get rebranded, but they're $600 and they don't hit OSHA standard for a 7-inch grinder.
IQ does.
But IQ does, but it's not. It's $1,000 vacuum, and it's that next step up in vacuum without getting into the industrial size stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, folks, like, go check out, see what they have, and go from there. In the meantime, go to flooracademypod.com, and like I said, check out the shop, learn about our mastermind groups, send me an email, or set up an appointment if you want to talk about those more seriously. The accountability, the externalization, getting ideas from other people, and just having to show up and actually take the time to talk about your business is going to make a difference. If you're listening to the show and you feel you're not getting anywhere, this is what's going to make the difference for you, because you're going to have to commit. You're going to feel like a fool when you don't show up. Ask Trask. Trask, you feel like an idiot when you don't show up?
Well, I feel like he's dumb. But hey, you want to serious? I'm just like, I'm 5% more here, and I could get 5. If you want quadruple 5 extra money on, you're not putting in the time. Seriously, like, forget about getting 5%. But if you want to invest in yourself, do this. You would have to be an idiot not to make money. With that kind of accountability, that kind of knowledge, you are going to. Prosper. You're gonna break through whatever you're dealing with. It's just, I can't even imagine not doing this.
If you put in the time, it's gonna make the difference. That's what it comes down to.
And it sucks.
And if it's not working by yourself, then come have 5 other people hold you accountable, because we will. I guarantee it. So check those out. Again, go to patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping the show continue to happen. And that'll do it for us this week. We'll catch you next week with a new topic and a new little way for you to improve your business. Thanks, everybody.